I always thought family meant unconditional love and acceptance, but that illusion shattered during our Thanksgiving dinner last year. The turkey was barely carved when my sister Amanda suddenly stood up, wine glass in hand. "We've decided to make this official," she announced, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "We took a family vote, and you're not part of this family anymore, Stacy." The table erupted in applause and cheers, like I was some villain finally getting her comeuppance. 5 years of distance, and this was their welcome home. I should have felt devastated, but instead, a strange calm washed over me. I laughed softly, reaching for my purse. "Then I guess you won't need this," I said, placing a manila folder on the table. Amanda snatched it up, flipping it open with a smirk that vanished instantly. Her scream pierced the room as 15 years of financial records spilled out, revealing exactly who had been keeping this family afloat all along. The drive back to my hometown of Westridge took 3 hours, but emotionally, it felt like crossing continents. 5 years had passed since I'd spent more than a rushed weekend visit with my family. As I passed the faded "Welcome to Westridge" sign, memories flooded back of growing up as the odd one out in our family of 5. From childhood, the dynamic was clear. Amanda was the beautiful one, Tyler the charming son, and I was just Stacy, the studious, serious middle child who somehow never quite fit the mold. While my siblings excelled at sports and popularity, I buried myself in books and part-time jobs, determined to build something for myself. "You always think you're better than everyone," Amanda would say whenever I earned academic recognition or saved money instead of spending it on weekend parties. My parents never defended me. Their silence was a confirmation of where I stood in the family hierarchy. I left home at 18, putting myself through state college with scholarships and night jobs. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a financial consulting firm in Chicago. Through relentless work and natural aptitude, I climbed quickly, becoming one of the youngest senior consultants by 30. Now, at 32, I managed investment portfolios worth millions. None of my family knew the extent of my success. Our communication dwindled to obligatory birthday calls and brief updates. What they also didn't know was that when my father's hardware store nearly went bankrupt after the economic downturn 6 years ago, it was my money that saved it. Through a lawyer who established an anonymous trust, I'd been sending substantial financial support to my family for years. The call from Amanda 3 weeks ago caught me by surprise. "We really want you home for Thanksgiving this year," Shed said with unusual warmth. "Mom and Dad miss you. We all do. It's time to put the past behind us." Hope is a dangerous thing for someone who's been disappointed repeatedly. Yet I couldn't stop that tiny flame from flickering to life. Maybe they'd finally seen me, appreciated me. Maybe time had healed old wounds. I decided to bring the folder of financial records as a peace offering, finally revealing I was their anonymous benefactor. As I turned onto Maple Street, I was startled by the appearance of my parents' house. The worn vinyl siding had been replaced with elegant stonework. A new 3-car garage stood where the crumbling carport used to be. Everything had been replaced with high-end finishes, marble countertops, hardwood floors, designer furniture. On their reported income, this level of luxury was impossible. "The place looks amazing," I said carefully. "Business must be booming." My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "We've been blessed with some good fortune. That trust fund was a godsend," my mother added. "Your great-uncle Edward always did have a soft spot for the family." Great-uncle Edward was my invention, the purported source of the anonymous trust I had established. Amanda quickly changed the subject. "Let me show you to the guest room. We've redone that too." As we passed the living room, I spotted Tyler slouched on the sofa, phone in hand. At 30, my younger brother had the perpetual look of someone expecting the world to do him favors. He barely looked up as I passed. "Hey, stranger," he muttered. "Tyler," I acknowledged. Our relationship had always been the most distant. The guest room was indeed transformed, now featuring an expensive-looking bedroom set and private bathroom. As Amanda prattled on about the designer who had helped them, I noticed a tension in her manner, a forced quality to her enthusiasm. "Dinner's at 4. Don't be late," she said, closing the door with unusual firmness. Alone, I sat on the edge of the bed, wondering if I'd made a mistake in coming. The folder with the financial records sat in my suitcase. Perhaps this wasn't the right time for revelations, after all. While freshening up in the guest bathroom, I accidentally knocked over a stack of papers hidden behind a decorative basket. Picking them up, I froze as I recognized legal letterhead from a local law firm. It was paperwork regarding the transfer of property ownership for my grandmother's old cottage on Lake Westridge, currently owned jointly by Amanda, Tyler, and me. The document was drafted to transfer my third to my siblings. Voices drifted in from the hallway outside. Tyler and our cousin Jake speaking in hushed tones. "When is she signing it?" Jake asked. "After dinner," Tyler replied. "Amanda says to make sure she doesn't leave until it's done. And she has no idea. None. She thinks this is some family reunion crap. Amanda's got it all planned." Their footsteps faded down the hall, leaving me clutching the papers, the flame of hope extinguishing as quickly as it had ignited. This wasn't a reconciliation. It was a setup. By 4 o'clock, the house was filled with the extended family. Aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't seen in years. The pattern continued throughout pre-dinner drinks and appetizers. Every attempt I made at conversation was subtly twisted or dismissed. When I mentioned a recent business trip to Tokyo, Tyler rolled his eyes. "Some of us care about family more than frequent flyer miles," he said, despite having never held a job for more than 8 months. I noticed Uncle Robert, always my favorite relative, watching these interactions with discomfort. When our eyes met, he looked away quickly. Whatever was planned, everyone seemed to be in on it. My father stood in the center of the living room, holding court as he always did. "Family is everything," he proclaimed, glass raised. "Loyalty to family comes first, last, and always." His eyes fixed meaningfully on me. In the kitchen, I offered to help my mother with the turkey. She seemed flustered by my presence, dropping a serving spoon and fumbling with the oven mitts. "Mom, is everything okay?" I asked gently. "Of course," she said too quickly. Why wouldn't it be? Through the kitchen door, I could see Amanda in deep conversation with Aunt Patty. "It'll be handled by dessert," she was saying. "Dad says she has no choice but to sign." My stomach tightened. The cottage property wasn't particularly valuable, maybe worth $70,000 in its current condition. Why was it suddenly so important to them? What weren't they telling me? The dining room table had been extended to seat 16 people. I found myself placed at the far end, separated from my immediate family who clustered at the head with my father at the center. As always, the spread was impressive. A 20-pound turkey, 5 different sides, 3 types of pie. The folder in my purse felt increasingly heavy against my side. As the dinner plates were cleared and dessert was being prepared, Amanda stood suddenly, tapping her glass with a spoon. The room fell into immediate silence. Everyone's attention focused on her with an intensity that confirmed this moment had been anticipated. "I think it's time we address the elephant in the room," she began, her voice carrying an authority I'd never heard from her before. "Stacy, we didn't just invite you for dinner today." My father straightened in his chair. My mother stared at her plate. "We've been talking as a family," Amanda continued, "about what family really means." Her eyes swept the table, gathering support from the nodding relatives. "It means being present. It means sacrificing for each other. It means loyalty." She took a dramatic pause, looking directly at me now. "For 5 years, you've chosen to stay away. You've built your separate life while Mom and Dad struggled, while I helped raise their grandchildren nearby, while Tyler stayed to help with the store." This was news to me. Tyler helping at the store? The same Tyler who had called me twice asking for loans to cover gambling debts? "So we've made a family decision," Amanda declared. "We took a vote, and we've decided you're not family anymore, Stacy." The table erupted in applause and supportive calls. My Uncle Robert remained silent, looking miserable. "What we need from you," Amanda continued when the noise died down, "is for you to sign over your portion of Grandma's cottage. We're all in agreement that since you've abandoned your place in this family, you have no right to that inheritance. It should stay with the real family." I looked around the table at the faces of people who had known me since birth, now regarding me as an outsider to be ejected. The realization was oddly freeing. For years, I'd carried the weight of their disapproval, their conditional acceptance. Now at least, the pretense was gone. A strange calm settled over me. I even smiled, which seemed to unnerve Amanda. "Is that funny to you?" she demanded. "No," I said quietly, just clarifying. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder Id brought. Then I guess you won't need this. I placed it deliberately on the table and slid it toward her. Amanda snatched it up with a triumphant expression that vanished the moment she opened it. Her face drained of color as she flipped through the contents, her hands beginning to shake. The scream that tore from her throat silenced the room. What is this? Amanda's voice had risen to a pitch I'd never heard before. What are you trying to pull? What's wrong? My father demanded, rising from his seat. Amanda's hands shook as she held up the papers. These are financial records, years of them. Transfers, payments. What is this, Stacy? I remained seated, my voice steady. That's documentation of every penny I've sent to this family over the past 6 years. Nearly $400,000 in total. A wave of confusion swept across the room. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. The trust fund. I continued. From Great Uncle Edward? There is no Great Uncle Edward. There never was. That money came from me. Tyler lunged across the table, grabbing several pages. This can't be real, he muttered. But his expression said he already knew it was. After Dad's store nearly went bankrupt, I established an anonymous trust through my attorney. Every month, I've contributed a third of my income to keep this family afloat. I paid off the second mortgage on this house. I covered the tax liens on the store. I paid for Tyler's gambling debts last year, and the year before that. All eyes turned to Tyler, who seemed to shrink in his chair. You knew about that, he whispered. I knew about all of it, I said. I also knew about Amanda's children's private school tuition, which I've been covering since they started, and the medical bills when Mom needed surgery 3 years ago. My father was flipping frantically through the papers now, his face growing redder by the second. This isn't possible. The trust fund came from your mother's side of the family. No, Dad. It came from me. Every dollar. But you're just a financial consultant, Amanda protested weakly. You couldn't possibly afford all this. I laughed without humor. I'm not just a financial consultant. I'm a senior partner at Weston & Burke. My annual salary is over $300,000, with bonuses that nearly double that. I've been supporting this family while building my own 7-figure investment portfolio. The silence that followed was deafening. Cousin Jake whistled low under his breath. And now, I continued. I find out you've been planning to manipulate me into signing over Grandma's cottage. A property worth maybe $70,000? After everything Eve given you. My mother began to cry quietly. My father's face had gone from red to ashen. We didn't know, he finally said. Would it have mattered if you did? I asked. Or would you still have voted me out of the family? No one answered. I stood up, gathering my purse. I think I should go. Wait, my mother's voice cracked as she spoke. There's something you should know. Amanda shot her a warning glance, which she ignored. The money. It's gone, Mom said. I stared at her. What do you mean, gone? My father slumped in his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 63 years. We've spent it all, and more. The renovations, I said, looking around at the expensive furnishings. Not just that, my mother admitted. We remortgaged the house again last year. The store is failing. We're actually in more debt now than we were when you started helping us. The pieces clicked into place, so you need Grandma's cottage to sell or use as collateral for more loans. No one denied it. How? I asked. How could you possibly have gone through all that money and ended up worse off? Amanda and my parents exchanged glances. Your father has a shopping addiction, my mother finally said. The garage is full of things he's ordered online, thousands of dollars every month. And you? I asked her. She looked down. QVC, home shopping, it just got out of control. I turned to Amanda. And the private school tuition I've been paying? The money for your house down payment. Amanda's husband Dave suddenly pushed back from the table. What house down payment? He demanded. You told me your parents helped us with that. Amanda's face flushed. I was going to tell you. Like you were going to tell me about remortgaging our house. Dave stood up, his expression thunderous. You said that was a home equity line for the kitchen renovation. Dave, please, Amanda begged. Not here. Where then? When? Between your shopping trips and charity galas where you donate money, we don't have to impress people who don't care about us. His voice rose with each word. The twins began to cry, frightened by their father's outburst. I'm taking the kids to my mother's, Dave announced. Don't follow us. I need to think. He gathered the children and stormed out, leaving Amanda staring after him, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. I think the rest of us should go too. He gave me a sad smile as he rose. I always knew you were the strongest one, Stacy. Within minutes, the extended family had made uncomfortable excuses and departed, leaving just my parents, Amanda, Tyler, and me in the wreckage of Thanksgiving dinner. How bad is it really? I asked into the silence. We could lose the house within 3 months, my father admitted. The business too. That's why we needed you to sign over the cottage, Amanda said, her voice small and defeated. We were going to sell it, and you thought the best approach was to ambush me, to formally kick me out of the family. The hurt was finally breaking through my calm exterior. My father clutched suddenly at his chest, his breathing becoming labored. Dad. I moved quickly to his side. Are you okay? His medication, my mother said urgently. In the bathroom cabinet. I rushed to retrieve it, returning with a prescription bottle labeled nitroglycerin. As I helped him place a tablet under his tongue, I read the prescription information. This is for coronary artery disease, I said, looking at my mother. How long has he had heart problems? About 8 months, she admitted. The doctor says he needs surgery, but insurance won't cover all of it. And you didn't think to tell me? To ask for help directly instead of concocting this scheme. Pride, my father gasped as his breathing began to normalize. Couldn't admit we'd failed. Again, I helped him to the living room couch, my mind racing to process everything. The family I thought had rejected me had actually been desperately dependent on me, yet too proud to admit it. And now they were in deeper trouble than ever before. As I adjusted a pillow behind my father's back, I noticed more prescription bottles on the side table. One was for anxiety, another for depression. Both in my mother's name. Mom, are you getting proper treatment? I asked. When I can, she said vaguely. The medications are expensive. I shook my head, trying to make sense of it all. I don't understand. With everything I've been sending, you should have been able to afford proper health care, to manage the business effectively. Where did it all go wrong? Addiction, Tyler said suddenly from the doorway. Had been so quiet it almost forgotten he was there. That's the word no one's using. Dad's addicted to buying things. Mom's addicted to the home shopping channels. I'm addicted to poker and sports betting. And Amanda's addicted to keeping up appearances. It was the most insightful thing I'd ever heard him say. Dave doesn't know half of it, he continued. The country club membership, the designer clothes, the vacations she puts on credit cards. All to look perfect on social media. Amanda didn't even try to deny it. I sat down heavily, the weight of the situation sinking in. My anonymous generosity, intended to help, had instead enabled a family of addicts to spiral further out of control. And now my father's life was literally at stake. I need to call your doctor, I said, reaching for the prescription bottle to find the number. As I dialed, I caught my siblings watching me with a new expression. Hope mixed with shame. The power dynamic had shifted completely in the space of an hour. The family that had voted to cast me out was now looking to me for salvation once again. The doctor answered on the 4th ring. After identifying myself as Robert Marshall's daughter, I asked about his condition. What the doctor told me made my blood run cold. Had been trying to reach my parents for weeks. There was a clinical trial for a new procedure that could help my father, fully funded by a research grant, but the deadline for application was tomorrow, and there was extensive paperwork and preliminary testing required. Why haven't you responded to our calls? The doctor asked. I just found out about his condition today, I replied, looking directly at my mother, who averted her eyes. But make sure he's there tomorrow morning with everything completed. As I hung up, I felt a strange mix of anger, determination, and an odd sense of purpose. For years, I'd allowed myself to be the family outsider while secretly trying to help from afar. Now, finally, all the cards were on the table. There's a clinical trial that could cover Dad's surgery, I announced. But the application is due tomorrow, and no one has done anything about it. The look of guilty relief on their faces told me everything. Once again, it would fall to me to save them, but this time it would be on my terms. The aftermath of my revelation transformed Thanksgiving dinner into a battlefield of accusations and blame. Amanda paced the living room, alternating between frantic calls to her husband that went straight to voicemail and bitter accusations thrown at our parents. "You told me the trust fund was secure," she shouted. "I made financial decisions based on what you promised me." "We thought it was," our mother defended weakly. "We never knew it was Stacy." "Would that have made a difference?" Tyler interjected, his voice slurred slightly. "Had been steadily drinking since dinner. You would have just found another way to lie about it. Like you lied about the remortgage. You're one to talk about lying." Amanda rounded on him. "What about the $20,000 Mom and Dad gave you for your business investment last year? That went straight to your bookie, didn't it?" Tyler lunged to his feet. "At least I'm not pretending to be some perfect suburban mom while stealing from my workplace." The room went silent. "What did you just say?" I asked quietly. Amanda's face crumpled. "He doesn't know what he's talking about." "Tell her," Tyler insisted. "Tell Stacy about the accounting discrepancies at your office. Tell her why you've been working late every night trying to fix the books before the audit next month." My father groaned from the couch, clutching his chest again. "Stop it, both of you," I ordered, moving to check on him. "This isn't helping anything." His color was better than before, but his breathing was still labored. The stress of the situation was clearly taking a toll. "Dad needs to rest," I said firmly. "Mom, help me get him to bed. Amanda, Tyler, either calm down or take this somewhere else." To my surprise, they obeyed without argument. The family dynamic had shifted dramatically. In the vacuum created by the collapse of their facades, my natural authority had emerged. After settling my father in his bedroom with another nitroglycerin tablet, I confronted my mother in the hallway. "I need to know everything, Mom. No more secrets, no more lies. How bad is Dad's heart condition, really?" She seemed to age before my eyes, the carefully maintained appearance giving way to exhausted reality. Triple vessel disease. The doctor says without surgery, he could have a major heart attack any time. 50% chance he wouldn't survive it. "And you kept this from me because—" She looked down. "We were ashamed. After everything you'd already done, we couldn't ask for more." Then Amanda came up with the plan to get the cottage. "Mom," I said gently but firmly, "I need to see all of Dad's medical records and any paperwork related to this clinical trial. Now." While she gathered the documents, I returned to the living room to find Tyler slumped on the couch, staring into an empty whiskey glass. "How much do you owe, Tyler?" I asked without preamble. He looked up, surprised by the direct question. "What?" "Your gambling debts. How much?" He swallowed hard. "About 42,000. The number shocked me, even after everything else he'd learned. "To whom?" "Some to casinos, some to online betting sites." He hesitated. "And some to people you don't want to owe money to. Loan sharks," I pressed. His silence was answer enough. "And Amanda? What did you mean about her workplace?" Tyler rubbed his face. "She's been borrowing from the accounting firm where she works, falsifying expense reports, manipulating client billing. Small amounts at first, but it's added up over time. If they catch her, she could face criminal charges." The scope of the disaster was expanding by the minute. My family wasn't just financially irresponsible, they were potentially facing legal consequences. My mother returned with a thick folder of medical documents, which I began to review immediately. As I suspected, my father's condition was serious but treatable. The clinical trial paperwork was complex, requiring detailed medical history and financial information. "We need to work on this tonight if we're going to make the deadline," I told my mother. "I'll need your help." For the next several hours, we sat at the dining room table among the abandoned Thanksgiving dishes, filling out forms and organizing records. During this time, my mother spoke more honestly than she had in years. "We were always jealous of you, you know," she said quietly as we worked. "Your father and I, even Amanda and Tyler." I looked up, surprised. "Jealous? Of what?" "Your certainty. Your independence. You always knew what you wanted and how to get it. We never did." She smiled sadly. "When you left home, part of me was relieved. Your confidence highlighted our weaknesses. That doesn't explain treating me like an outsider all these years." She nodded. "It was easier to push you away than to face our own failings. When the anonymous money started coming, we told ourselves we deserved it somehow, that the universe was finally rewarding us. We never once considered it might be you." As we continued working, I excused myself to use my father's office computer to scan some documents. While searching for the scanner software, I discovered a folder of old family photos. Curious, I opened it and found dozens of pictures of my grandmother, many featuring me as a child. Behind these was a stack of letters, yellowed with age. The top one caught my eye. It was addressed to my father in my grandmother's handwriting, dated just weeks before her death. I knew I shouldn't read it, but something compelled me to unfold the brittle paper. Robert, it began. I've made my final decisions regarding the lake property. While I'm leaving it jointly to all 3 children as discussed. I want you to know my true wishes. Stacy is the only one who understands what that land means. The only one who shares my vision for it. The others will want to sell, but she will preserve its legacy. In time, I hope you'll find a way to honor this. Your mother. I sat back, stunned. My grandmother had wanted me to have the property all along. She'd recognized something in me that my own parents couldn't, or wouldn't, see. A noise at the doorway startled me. Amanda stood there, her perfect makeup streaked with tears, her designer outfit rumpled. Dave's not answering, she said, her voice hollow. Has blocked my calls. In that moment, she looked nothing like the confident, manipulative sister who had orchestrated my familial exile. She looked broken. Did you really embezzle money from your firm? I asked. She flinched but didn't deny it. It started small. Expense reports padded by a few $100s, then client retainers that I borrowed temporarily. I was going to pay it all back, but the spending never stopped. I finished for her. She collapsed into a chair. I built this whole life, this whole image. Perfect career, perfect husband, perfect children, perfect house in the perfect neighborhood. A bitter laugh escaped her. None of it was real. I'm $80,000 in debt. My marriage is probably over, and I might be going to jail. For the first time in my adult life, I saw my sister without the shield of competition and resentment between us. I saw someone desperately unhappy, trying to fill an internal void with external validation. In some ways, we'd both been running from the same family dysfunction, just in opposite directions. We need to talk about this, I said, all of it. But right now, I need to finish this paperwork for Dad's clinical trial. Can you help? She nodded, wiping her eyes, and followed me back to the dining room where our mother was still working. The 3 of us continued in unusual harmony, focusing on the common goal of potentially saving my father's life. Around 2 a.m, we completed the last form. Amanda had fallen asleep at the table, her head resting on her arms. My mother looked exhausted but relieved. I'll drive Dad to the hospital first thing tomorrow, I said. We should all try to get some sleep. As I turned to leave, my mother caught my arm. Stacy, she said, her voice trembling. I know we don't deserve your help after today, after everything, but thank you. I didn't respond immediately. The hurt was still too fresh, the betrayal too profound. But beneath the anger, I felt something unexpected, a sense of clarity. For the first time, I was seeing my family as they truly were, not as I had idealized them in absence or demonized them in rejection. Well, talk tomorrow, I said finally. Get some rest, Mom. As I climbed the stairs to the guest room, I heard the front door open and close quietly. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Tyler slipping out into the night. I considered going after him but decided against it. One crisis at a time, tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Sleep eluded me despite my exhaustion. Around 4 a.m, I gave up trying and went downstairs to make coffee. To my surprise, my mother was already in the kitchen, staring into a mug of tea. Couldn't sleep either, I asked. She shook her head. Too much on my mind. We sat in surprisingly comfortable silence for a while, the kitchen clock ticking steadily in the background. Tyler didn't come home, she finally said. I saw him leave last night. He does that when he's feeling cornered. Disappears for a day or 2. She sighed. Usually to a casino or a poker game. With $42,000 in existing debt, that's the last place he should be. She nodded wearily. Addiction isn't logical. I should know. The home shopping. And prescription pills, for a while. Anti-anxiety medication. She looked at me directly. Being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, it takes a toll. The pills helped me maintain the facade. This level of honesty between us was unprecedented. In the quiet darkness of early morning, the pretenses that had governed our relationship for decades seemed to have dissolved. "Why did you stay?" I asked. "If you were so unhappy." She considered the question seriously. "Fear, mostly. Fear of change, of failure, of what people would think. And there were good times too, especially when you kids were little." A sad smile crossed her face. "Your father wasn't always like this. The spending addiction came later, after his first business failure. It gave him a sense of control when he felt powerless." "That doesn't excuse what happened yesterday," I pointed out. "What all of you planned." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't. We became so focused on maintaining appearances that we lost sight of what actually matters. And it cost us you." The simple acknowledgement touched something deep inside me. For years, I'd carried the weight of being the family outsider, never quite understanding why I couldn't earn their approval. Now, finally, came the recognition that the problem had never been me. "I need to ask you something, Mom, and I need you to be honest. If you hadn't discovered that I was the source of the trust fund money, would you have gone through with Amanda's plan? Would you have taken my share of Grandma's property and cut me out of the family for good?" She looked down at her hands, wrinkled and veined with age. "I'd like to say no. I'd like to believe I would have stopped it." She paused. "But the truth is, I don't know. I've spent so many years taking the path of least resistance, letting your father and Amanda make the difficult decisions." Her honesty, painful as it was, felt like the first real connection Wed had in years. "I found Grandma's letter," I said, "the one where she told Dad she wanted me to have the lake property." My mother's expression shifted to surprise, then resignation. "He never told me about that. But it doesn't surprise me. You were always her favorite. You have her spirit. Why did she leave it to all three of us equally then?" "Your father convinced her it would cause too much conflict to single you out." She shook her head. The irony. We lapsed into silence again, the weight of decades of family dynamics hanging between us. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "First, we get Dad into that clinical trial. Then we deal with the financial mess. And then, I took a deep breath. "I honestly don't know. Trust takes time to rebuild, if it can be rebuilt at all." A noise from the hallway interrupted us. Amanda appeared, looking disheveled and empty-eyed. "Dave called," she said flatly. "Hes staying at his parents' with the kids. Hes talking about separation." Neither my mother nor I knew quite how to respond. Amanda had always been the golden child, the one whose life seemed perfect on the surface. Seeing her crumbling was disconcerting. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked. She shook her head. "I've been going through our finances, trying to figure out how bad it really is." She placed a stack of credit card statements on the table. "I'm over 100,000 in debt, not 80 like I thought. I've been using balance transfers to juggle it, opening new cards when the old ones max out." "And the situation at work?" I prompted gently. Her shoulders slumped. "I've diverted about 37,000 from client accounts over the past year. The audit is in 3 weeks. There's no way to replace it in time. You need to tell them before they discover it," I advised. "It might make the difference between criminal charges and a civil settlement. I'll lose my job, my professional license, everything I've worked for." "You're going to lose those things anyway if they discover the embezzlement," I pointed out. "Coming forward might at least keep you out of jail." She nodded, accepting the harsh reality. "How did we end up here, Stacy? How did everything go so wrong?" It was a question with no easy answer. Instead of trying to provide one, I stood up and refilled our coffee mugs. "Let's focus on what we can fix right now. Dad needs to be at the hospital by 8 for the clinical trial evaluation. Mom and I have the paperwork ready. I'll wake him," my mother offered, pushing back from the table. The house felt strange in the pre-dawn light, the expensive furnishings and renovations now seeming like hollow symbols of a facade that had finally crumbled. As we prepared for the day ahead, I felt a curious sense of calm. The worst had happened, the painful truths had been exposed, and somehow we were still here, moving forward. My father appeared in the kitchen, looking frail but determined. "Stacy says there's a clinical trial," he said to no one in particular. "Yes," I confirmed. "If you're accepted, it could cover the entire cost of your surgery and follow-up care." He nodded, avoiding my eyes. "Thank you for finding this opportunity." It wasn't an apology, not directly, but from a man as proud as my father. It was significant. "We need to leave in 30 minutes, I said, checking my watch. "Can you be ready?" As my parents went upstairs to prepare, Amanda remained at the table, staring at the financial documents. "What am I going to tell the kids?" she whispered. "How do I explain that Mommy might be going to jail?" The vulnerability in her voice touched me despite everything. "One step at a time," I advised. "First, talk to your firm. See what can be worked out. Then focus on your marriage. The kids are young enough that they don't need to know everything right away." She looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. "Respect. How are you so calm? After what we tried to do to you yesterday, how can you even stand to be in the same room with us?" It was a fair question. "I'm still processing all of this," I admitted. "I'm hurt and angry about yesterday, but I've also spent years trying to help this family from a distance, so clearly some part of me still cares." A key turned in the front door, interrupting our conversation. Tyler stumbled in, looking haggard and smelling of alcohol. "Where have you been?" Amanda demanded. "Out," he replied tersely, heading for the stairs. "Tyler, wait," I called. "Dad has a hospital appointment for the clinical trial. We're leaving soon." He paused, swaying slightly. "Good for him. We need to talk about your situation too," I pressed. 42,000 is serious money, especially if some of it is owed to loan sharks." He turned, his expression dark. "Don't worry about it. I've got it handled. Like you had it handled the last 2 times I bailed you out," I challenged. A flicker of shame crossed his face. "So that was you too?" "Yes." He leaned against the wall, suddenly looking very young and very tired. I thought I hit a lucky streak. That's what I told myself. That my gambling was finally paying off. He laughed bitterly. "Should have known better. Get some sleep," I said. "Well, talk when I get back from the hospital." He nodded vaguely and disappeared upstairs. By 7:30, my father and I were on the road to the hospital. He sat silently in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the town where Head spent his entire life. "I never wanted it to come to this," he finally said. "Yesterday. That was Amanda's idea, not mine. But you went along with it," I pointed out. He nodded. "I was desperate. The chest pains were getting worse. The business is failing again. The house payments." He trailed off. It seemed like the only option. "You could have just asked me for help," I said quietly, directly. "Honestly. Pride," he admitted. "Too much damn pride." We arrived at the hospital, where a team of specialists was waiting. The clinical trial coordinator reviewed our paperwork, nodding with approval at the thoroughness. After a battery of preliminary tests, the lead cardiologist delivered the news. My father qualified for the trial. The surgery would be scheduled for the following week, all expenses covered. The relief on my father's face was palpable. For the first time since Id arrived home, he looked directly into my eyes. "Thank you," he said simply. On the drive home, he seemed more alert, more present. "You found Grandma's letter, didn't you?" he asked suddenly. I glanced at him in surprise. "Yes, how did you know?" "Saw you in my office last night," he sighed. "She was right about you, you know. Always had better judgment than me." It was as close to an apology as he was likely to give, and I accepted it for what it was. When we returned to the house, we found Amanda on the phone, her voice serious and professional. She was speaking with her firm's managing partner, requesting an urgent meeting. As she hung up, she looked terrified but resolved. 3 o'clock today, she told me. "I'm going to come clean about everything. Do you want me to go with you?" I offered. "I can help explain the situation from a financial perspective, maybe suggest a repayment plan." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You would do that? Even after yesterday?" I considered my answer carefully. "I've spent 6 years trying to help this family from a distance. I'm not going to stop now just because the help needs to be more direct." She brushed away tears, nodding gratefully. My mother appeared from upstairs. "Tyler's gone again," she reported. "He took his duffel bag." A sense of foreboding washed over me. "Did he say where he was going?" "No, but he left this." She handed me a crumpled note. "Going to fix things my way." It read, "Don't worry about me." Given what I knew about his gambling debts and his history of poor decisions, this was deeply concerning. "I think I know where he might be," Amanda said. There's a high-stakes poker game that runs on Friday afternoons at the old mill building outside town. Hez mentioned it before. Hez going to try to win enough to cover his debts, I realized. With what money? My father and mother exchanged alarmed glances. My cash box from the store, my father said. It's missing. About $3,000. That's insane, I protested. The odds of him winning are minuscule, and if he loses, we have to find him, Amanda urged. Those aren't nice people who run those games. I checked my watch. It was nearly noon. Amanda, you have your meeting at 3. Dad needs to rest after the hospital tests. Mom, you stay with him. I'll go look for Tyler. Without waiting for their agreement, I grabbed my car keys and headed out. I had spent years trying to help my family from afar, but now the challenges were immediate and personal. For better or worse, I was involved in a way I hadn't been since leaving home at 18. As I drove toward the abandoned mill on the outskirts of town, I found myself reflecting on the strange turn of events. 24 hours ago, I had arrived hopeful for reconciliation. Instead, I had discovered layers of deception, addiction, and desperation I never imagined. And yet, paradoxically, these painful revelations had created the first honest connections with my family in years. Whatever happened next, there would be no going back to the way things were. Whether that meant permanent estrangement or a new, more authentic relationship remained to be seen. But first, I needed to find my brother before he made an already dire situation catastrophically worse. The old mill loomed ahead, its weathered brick exterior showing decades of neglect. Despite being abandoned for industrial purposes, the parking lot held several expensive cars, confirming Amanda's information about the poker game. I pulled in beside a black SUV with tinted windows and took a deep breath. Walking into an illegal gambling operation wasn't something I'd ever imagined doing, but the stakes were too high to hesitate. Tyler wasn't just risking my father's cash, he was potentially putting himself in physical danger from people who collected debts through intimidation and violence. The front entrance was locked, but a side door opened at my knock. A burly man with a neck tattoo assessed me skeptically. "I'm looking for Tyler Marshall," I said, projecting confidence I didn't entirely feel. "No spectators," he grunted, moving to close the door. I blocked it with my foot. "I'm not here to watch. I'm here to settle his debt." This caught his attention. "You got 45 large on you." The amount had grown. "I need to speak with him first." The man considered me for a moment, then shrugged. "Your funeral." He stepped aside to let me enter. The interior was surprisingly well appointed, with several poker tables set up in what had once been the main floor of the mill. Professional dealers in vests managed the games while cocktail waitresses in revealing outfits served drinks. It was like a miniature underground casino. I spotted Tyler at a table near the back, a stack of chips in front of him. His expression was intense, focused in a way I rarely saw him. As I approached, I could see he had maybe 4,000 in chips, a modest improvement on what Head started with. "Tyler," I said quietly, touching his shoulder. He jumped, then scowled when he recognized me. "What are you doing here?" "Preventing you from making a terrible situation worse," I replied. "We need to talk." "I'm in the middle of a hand. It can wait." The other players watched our exchange with interest. A man in an expensive suit across the table smirked. "Better listen to the lady, Tyler. Especially if she's here with your money." Tyler flushed. "Shay's just my sister." "Your sister who's paid off your debts before," I reminded him. "Fold the hand." Now, something in my tone must have reached him because he hesitated, then tossed his cards into the center. "I'm out." I pulled him away from the table toward a quiet corner. "What were you thinking? Taking Dad's cash register money?" "After everything that happened yesterday, I was up almost 1,000, he defended. "A few more good hands and I could have made a dent in what I owe." "Or lost everything and put yourself deeper in the hole," I countered. "This isn't a solution, Tyler. It's just feeding the problem." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "You don't understand. These people aren't patient. Joey Kane over there." He nodded toward a heavy-set man watching us from the bar. "He's already sent guys to talk to me twice this month. Next time won't be just talk. So your plan was to gamble with stolen money, the very thing that got you into this mess." I couldn't keep the exasperation from my voice. "I don't have your options, okay?" he snapped. "Not all of us can just work hard and succeed. Some of us try and fail, over and over." For the first time, I glimpsed the depth of his frustration and self-loathing. Behind the irresponsibility and poor choices was someone who had given up on himself long ago. Cash out, I said. Well, figure something out. Just like that? You'll wave your magic wand and fix my life too. No. You'll fix your life. But it'll help you get started. Something in my steady gaze must have reached him, because he nodded reluctantly and returned to the table to exchange his chips for cash. As we prepared to leave, Joey Kane approached, blocking our path. Leaving so soon, Tyler? He asked, his tone deceptively pleasant. We haven't discussed your payment schedule. I stepped forward. I'm Stacy Marshall, Tyler's sister. I understand he owes you money. Kane looked me over appraisingly. $45,000, plus interest. It's overdue. I'd like to discuss terms, I said, using the same firm tone I employed in difficult business negotiations. Not here. Somewhere we can talk properly. He seemed amused by my directness. My office, upstairs. 5 minutes. He turned and walked away. Are you crazy? Tyler hissed. You don't negotiate with people like him. Actually, that's exactly what you do, I corrected. But you negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. The office was a renovated foreman's room overlooking the main floor. Kane sat behind a desk, watching us with calculated interest. So, Miss Marshall, you want to bail out little brother again? I want to propose a structured repayment plan, I clarified, one that benefits both parties. He laughed. I'm not a bank. I don't do installment plans. That's short-sighted, I replied calmly. Tyler can't pay you $45,000 immediately. If you hurt him, you get nothing. If you accept my proposal, you get your money plus reasonable interest. I'm listening. I laid out a 6-month repayment schedule, with weekly payments secured by a legal promissory note. I would make the first 2 payments immediately as a show of good faith. And why would I trust either of you to follow through? Kane asked. I pulled out my business card, which displayed my position as senior partner at Weston & Burke. Because I have too much to lose professionally to renege on a signed agreement, and because Tyler will enter a gambling addiction program as part of our arrangement. The negotiation continued for another 30 minutes, with Kane gradually recognizing that my proposal represented his best chance for full repayment. Eventually, we reached terms. A slightly higher interest rate than I'd initially offered, but a structured plan that would keep Tyler safe while satisfying the debt. As we left the mill, Tyler seemed stunned. I can't believe that worked. Professional negotiation is what I do, I reminded him. But this is a one-time intervention, Tyler. The gambling stops now, or all bets are off, so to speak. He nodded, a mix of relief and shame on his face. I've tried to stop before. It never sticks. That's because you tried alone. This time will be different. I checked my watch. We need to get back. I promised to go with Amanda to her meeting. On the drive home, Tyler was uncharacteristically reflective. Why are you doing all this? After what happened yesterday, you should hate us. Believe me, I'm still processing my feelings about that, I admitted. But family is complicated. The ties don't just disappear, even when they should. I was jealous of you, he confessed suddenly. Always. You were so sure of yourself, so capable. Nothing ever seemed to throw you. I laughed without humor. That's an illusion. I've had plenty of failures, plenty of doubts. I just didn't show them. Why not? Because I learned early that in our family, vulnerability was seen as weakness. So I buried it deep. He was quiet for a moment. I never thought of it that way. That you might have been struggling too. This simple acknowledgement of my humanity felt surprisingly significant. For years, my family had cast me in the role of the cold, detached achiever, never considering that my apparent self-sufficiency might be armor rather than my true nature. When we arrived home, Amanda was dressed in a conservative suit, her face pale but resolved. You found him, she said, relief evident in her voice, and negotiated a repayment plan for his gambling debts. I confirmed. Are you ready for your meeting? She nodded, clutching a folder similar to the one I had brought to Thanksgiving dinner, but filled with evidence of her own financial misdeeds. As ready as I'll ever be. The drive to Amanda's firm was tense. She stared out the window, occasionally wiping away silent tears. What will happen to the kids if I go to jail? She asked suddenly. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, I advised, full disclosure and a willingness to make restitution count for a lot. and I'll be there to help present a repayment plan. The accounting firm occupied the top floor of the tallest building in town, a testament to its prominence in the local business community. Amanda's hands shook as we rode the elevator up. Just tell the truth, I reminded her. No minimizing, no excuses. The managing partner, Gregory Wilson, greeted us with careful professionalism, clearly sensing something serious was afoot. Two other senior partners joined us in the conference room. Amanda has something important to discuss, I began, introducing myself as her sister and financial advisor. What followed was one of the most difficult hours I've witnessed. Amanda laid out the full extent of her embezzlement, providing documentation of every improper transaction. The partners' expressions moved from confusion to shock to anger as the scope became clear. Why are you telling us this now? Wilson finally asked. The audit would have uncovered it eventually. Because it's the right thing to do, Amanda replied, her voice steady despite her tears. And because I want to make it right, I presented a detailed restitution plan, including liquidation of Amanda's investment accounts, a second mortgage on her home, and structured payments from her future income. The total would repay the full amount plus interest within 3 years. This doesn't erase what happened, I acknowledged, but it demonstrates good faith and saves the firm the expense and publicity of criminal proceedings. The partners excused us to confer privately. In the hallway, Amanda seemed to deflate. They're going to call the police. Maybe, I conceded, but you've given them a viable alternative. That counts for something. After what felt like an eternity, we were called back in. The verdict was stern but not the worst-case scenario. Amanda would be terminated immediately and reported to the state licensing board, likely losing her CPA license. However, if she adhered strictly to the repayment plan, the firm would not press criminal charges. The drive home was silent, Amanda processing the consequences of her actions. Her career was over, her professional reputation destroyed. Yet there was also visible relief in her expression, the unburdening that comes with finally facing the truth. Dave called while you were inside with the partners. I told her, I think you should see him and the kids tonight. Start rebuilding what matters most. She nodded, tears flowing freely now. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me, I said honestly. Just do better. For your kids, if nothing else. At home, we found my parents and Tyler sitting together in the living room, an unusual tableau of family unity. My father looked better after resting. Some color returned to his face. How did it go? My mother asked anxiously. Amanda summarized the meeting outcome while I made coffee for everyone. There was a strangely cathartic quality to the conversation. Years of secrets and pretense finally giving way to painful honesty. I've been thinking, my father said when Amanda finished, about the store. It's been failing for years, but I couldn't admit it. I think it's time to sell. Coming from him, this was a monumental concession. The store had been his identity for over 3 decades. We don't need to decide everything today, I cautioned. Let's focus on your health first. After the surgery, we can look at all the options. Tyler tells us you worked out some kind of deal with Joey Kane, my mother said, changing the subject. Is that safe? As safe as anything involving loan sharks can be, I replied. But Tyler's agreed to enter a treatment program for gambling addiction as part of the arrangement. Tyler nodded, looking both embarrassed and determined. First meeting is tomorrow. The conversation continued as darkness fell outside, the 5 of us talking more openly than we had in decades, perhaps ever. There were moments of tension and recrimination, but also flashes of genuine connection. We ordered pizza for dinner, no one having the energy to cook after the emotional marathon of the past 24 hours. As we ate, I found myself studying these people who shared my blood but had often felt like strangers. My father, stubborn and proud, now humbled by health problems and financial failure. My mother, the perpetual peacekeeper who had sacrificed her own needs to maintain family appearances. Amanda, whose pursuit of perfection had led to criminal behavior. Tyler, self-destructive yet surprisingly perceptive beneath his careless facade. And me? The outsider who had simultaneously rejected and supported them from afar. None of us was who we had pretended to be, for better or worse. The facades had crumbled, leaving us naked in our flawed humanity. What happens now? Tyler asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. We start over, I said simply. We build something real this time. 3 months after that fateful Thanksgiving, I stood on the porch of my grandmother's lake cottage, watching the winter sunlight glint off the partially frozen water. The property that had nearly torn our family apart was now becoming a symbol of its rebuilding. My temporary relocation to Westridge had extended into a semi-permanent arrangement. I'd taken a 3-month leave from my firm to help stabilize my family's situation, working remotely when necessary. The cottage had become my refuge, a quiet place to think amid the ongoing chaos of family reconstruction. The day after my father's successful surgery through the clinical trial, I had presented my family with a comprehensive financial recovery plan. It included some painful necessities: the sale of my parents' oversized house, liquidation of unnecessary assets, and strict budgeting for everyone. I established a family trust with clear guidelines and accountability measures, replacing the anonymous support I'd provided before with transparent assistance tied to specific conditions. Those conditions were non-negotiable: financial counseling for my parents, gambling addiction treatment for Tyler, and family therapy for everyone. No more secrets, no more enabling of destructive behaviors. It was rehabilitation in the truest sense of the word. To my surprise, there was little resistance. The combined shock of my father's health crisis and the collapse of their financial house of cards had created a rare openness to change. The vote to remove me from the family had transformed, ironically, into a unanimous agreement to follow my guidance. Amanda's situation had stabilized somewhat. Dave had not filed for divorce, though they were still living separately while attending marriage counseling. Her legal issues were contained through the restitution agreement, though the loss of her professional license and career remained a heavy blow. She had found a job as an office manager at half her previous salary, a humbling transition she was facing with unexpected grace. Most importantly, she was rebuilding her relationship with her children on a foundation of honesty rather than perfection. Tyler had maintained sobriety from gambling for 90 consecutive days, his longest stretch ever. The weekly payments to Joey Kane continued on schedule, gradually reducing the debt that had hung over him like a sword. He had started taking classes at the community college, discovering an aptitude for computer programming that offered a potential career path more suited to his introverted nature than the sales jobs had failed at repeatedly. My parents had downsized to a comfortable but modest condo, using the proceeds from their house sale to clear most of their debts. My father's recovery from surgery was progressing well, though the health scare had aged him visibly. More significantly, it had forced him to confront his mortality and reassess his priorities. His shopping addiction was being addressed through therapy and strict budgeting, with my mother acting as an accountability partner rather than an enabler. As for my grandmother's cottage, I had made a decision that surprised everyone, myself included. Rather than selling it or keeping it for myself, I was converting it into a small business incubator, providing affordable workspace and mentoring for local entrepreneurs. It was a way of honoring my grandmother's belief in my business acumen while creating something that might actually help the community. The first tenants would be moving in next month. A car approached up the long driveway, breaking my reverie. It was Amanda, right on time for our weekly sister lunch, a tradition we had established in the aftermath of Thanksgiving. These meetings had been awkward at first, decades of competition and resentment not easily set aside. But gradually, we were learning to see each other as allies rather than rivals. "It looks different already," she commented as she joined me on the porch, surveying the renovation work in progress. "Grandma would have loved this." "I think so too," I agreed. "Ready for lunch?" I made sandwiches. Inside, as we ate at the small kitchen table, Amanda updated me on her children's adjustment to their new circumstances. "Lily asked why we had to sell her pony," she said with a rueful smile. I tried to explain about living within our means. I'm not sure it made sense to an 8-year-old, but I'm trying to be honest with them in age-appropriate ways. "That's all any of us can do," I replied. "Honest effort, one day at a time." "Dave and I are talking about moving back in together," she added. Tentatively. "With conditions." "That's great news. He says I'm different now, more real." She looked down at her plate. "It's strange. I spent so many years trying to be perfect, and all it did was push everyone away. Now I'm a mess with a tarnished reputation, and somehow my relationships are stronger. Authenticity connects people in a way that perfection never can," I observed. "It's something I'm learning too." "You? What did you have to learn?" "You were always the smart, successful one. I was also the isolated one," I reminded her. I kept everyone at a distance, including myself in some ways. Sending money anonymously let me feel connected without being vulnerable. It was its own kind of hiding. She considered this. I never thought of it that way. That you might have been protecting yourself too. Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Tyler and our parents for the family meeting that typically followed our lunch. These weekly gatherings had become the cornerstone of our rebuilding efforts, a time to discuss progress, address issues, and gradually relearn how to be family. My father entered with more energy than I'd seen in months, the successful surgery and regular exercise giving him a vitality that had been missing for years. "The doctor says my recovery is ahead of schedule," he announced proudly. "And I've stayed within budget all week." My mother squeezed his hand supportively. 30 days without a single unnecessary purchase. These small victories were celebrated sincerely. The path to recovery wasn't linear, with setbacks and old patterns occasionally reasserting themselves, but the overall trajectory was positive. Tyler arrived last, bringing the cookies he'd baked himself, a new hobby discovered through his recovery program. 92 days gambling free, he reported when asked, and I passed my first programming certification exam. The family meeting proceeded with updates from everyone, followed by discussion of ongoing challenges. There were no more facades, no pretense that everything was perfect. Instead, there was honest acknowledgement of struggles alongside genuine celebration of progress. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lake, our conversation turned reflective. "I never thought we'd be here," my father admitted. "After what happened at Thanksgiving, I assumed you'd write us off completely, Stacy. God knows you had reason to." I considered it. I acknowledged honestly, but something kept me here. "What?" Tyler asked. I considered the question carefully. Hope? Maybe. Not the naive hope I arrived with at Thanksgiving, but something more grounded. A recognition that under all the dysfunction, there was still something worth salvaging. "I'm glad you stayed," my mother said softly. "Even though we didn't deserve it." "Deserving has nothing to do with it," I replied. "That's what I've learned. Family isn't about deserving. It's about choosing to remain connected even through failure and pain. About growth rather than perfection." Amanda nodded thoughtfully. "I spent so many years trying to look like the perfect family on social media, crafting this image that had nothing to do with reality, and all it did was make me miserable." "We all contributed to the dysfunction," I acknowledged, me included. My distance and judgment weren't helpful either. "So what now?" Tyler asked. "We just keep having these meetings and therapy sessions forever." "Not forever," I smiled. "But for as long as they're helpful. Building a healthy family is an ongoing process, not a destination." As they prepared to leave, each embraced me with a warmth that would have been unimaginable 3 months earlier. The journey ahead remained challenging, with no guarantees of permanent transformation. Old patterns lurked beneath the surface, waiting for moments of stress or weakness. But for the first time in decades, we were facing those challenges together, with honesty rather than pretense. Alone again at the cottage, I watched the sunset over the lake my grandmother had loved so much. The betrayal at Thanksgiving had been painful beyond measure, yet it had also been necessary, forcing into the open the secrets and lies that had poisoned our family for generations. Sometimes complete collapse is the only path to authentic rebuilding. I thought about the folder I had placed on the table that night, the revelation that had changed everything. It had been both a weapon and a gift, destroying illusions while creating space for truth. In exposing my family's dependence on me, it had paradoxically freed all of us from the roles we'd been trapped in for too long. The lesson wasn't that family always deserves forgiveness, or that blood ties trump all betrayals. Rather, it was that genuine reconciliation becomes possible only when truth replaces pretense, when accountability accompanies apology, and when growth matters more than appearances. Walking away is sometimes necessary for everyone's well-being, but when conditions allow for healing, the rebuilt connections can be stronger than what was lost. As darkness settled over the lake, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. The pain hadn't disappeared, nor had all the damage been repaired. But we were no longer pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. We were no longer sacrificing authenticity on the altar of appearances, and in that honesty, however difficult, lay the foundation for something real. I had always thought strength meant independence, standing alone against adversity. Now I was learning that true strength often lies in interdependence, in connections built on mutual growth rather than obligation or appearance. In helping my family rebuild, I was also rebuilding myself, discovering parts of my identity that had been submerged in reaction to family dysfunction. The journey ahead would not be easy. Real change never is. But for the first time in memory, our family was facing reality together. No longer voting anyone out. No longer pretending to be what we weren't. The folder that had caused Amanda to scream in shock had ultimately been the beginning of a painful but necessary awakening. Sometimes it takes a complete breakdown to build something authentic and stronger. Have you ever experienced a moment when painful truth ultimately led to healing? When a relationship had to break completely before it could be rebuilt on a healthier foundation? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might find comfort in knowing that even the most broken family systems can begin to heal with honesty, accountability, and commitment to growth. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you courage on your own path toward authentic connection.